Good morning. This is Mohammad Suleiman, Assistant Professor of Commerce, working at MVS Government Degree College, Autonomous, Mahbub Nagar. Today, let us learn about transfer of ownership. Transfer of ownership is an important element and it is an important step in the process of a sale transaction because the sale transaction is complete only when the ownership is complete and the rights of ownership have been transferred to the buyer and the property has been passed to the owner. Therefore, transfer of ownership becomes important in a sale transaction and today let us learn about transfer of ownership. And these are the objectives of today's lesson. First, we will be learning about the introduction to transfer of ownership, the transactions, and then we will be learning about the concept of transfer of ownership. Then we will be seeing when the property passes, that is the time when the property actually passes on to the buyer, and we will see rules regarding passing of a property, how the rules have to be followed and what are the different rules and ruling position regarding passing of property to the buyer. Then we will be seeing about the risk element that is involved in case of passing of property. Then we will be seeing different contracts like CAF contracts, FOB contracts, and X ship contracts. Then we will be learning about sale by non-owners, that is who is not the actual owner but he is selling. As all of us know, that transfer of ownership is an important step in a sale transaction, and the transfer of property means the transfer of ownership of the goods from the seller to the buyer, which constitutes an ownership in the buyer. Therefore, transfer of ownership is important and it will give all the rights to the buyer. Therefore, it is important to learn how the transfer of property happens or the transfer of ownership happens in a sale transaction. Therefore, it is important to learn the significance of transfer of ownership. A contract of sale is performed in two interrelated stages with respect to the goods which form the subject matter of a contract of sale. So there are two interrelated stages. So there are two interrelated stages which form the subject matter of contract of sale. They are first one, transfer of possession of goods. This should happen first. The transfer of possession of goods, the goods which have been purchased or the goods which have been bought shall be transferred and the possession shall be given to the buyer. Then second one, transfer of ownership of goods or property in goods from the seller to the buyer. So by observing these two statements, we can observe that first thing or first one concentrates about possession and second one concentrates about ownership. So possession or ownership are the two words with different meanings for the purposes of the Sale of Goods Act. The transfer of possession is different from the transfer of ownership. This should be understood very clearly. The transfer of possession of goods does not necessarily mean that property in goods has also been transferred. Sometimes transfer of possession may be given, but transfer of ownership may not be given. It may be delayed or it may be agreed upon at a future date, at a certain date in future. Therefore, it is clear that transfer of possession is different and transfer of ownership is different. Similarly, on the other hand, transfer of property in goods does not essentially mean transfer of possession. Sometimes transfer of property, that is transfer of ownership, may happen, but the possession will be or the possession may be with some other person. So in such a case also, it is only one act, the one activity, that is transfer of ownership has happened, but not the transfer of possession. And there can be a case that a buyer having the ownership of goods, but the seller is not in a possession but the seller is in possession of the goods even after the sale transaction. A person buys the goods, but for some reason or for any other agreed reason, the goods may be kept at the seller only for some time. So there are different situations in which transfer of ownership may happen. Therefore, on a total basis, transfer of property means transfer of ownership of goods from the seller to the buyer, which constitutes the ownership in the buyer. And the questions as when ownership passes from the seller and buyer is important because of some reasons. There are some reasons which have to be understood properly uh, as to why the passing of ownership from the seller to buyer is important. Therefore, passing of ownership from the seller and buyer is important in the following reasons. And the reasons are risk of loss, only owner can sue, insolvency of the buyer or seller, and suit for price. Risk of loss. Let us see the first reason. The risk of loss also passes with the ownership of the goods from the buyer, from the seller to the buyer. In case if there is any risk, in case if there is any destruction of the property, in case if there is any accident, or if there is any flood, natural calamity, or earthquake, the risk of loss is to be uh, borne by the owner because the ownership has been transferred. Since the ownership has been transferred, the reason, whatsoever may be the reason, that is destruction of goods or any other thing, it is the owner who will actually suffer the loss. Sometimes, even after the transfer of ownership, the goods may be kept with a different person. That is, even the goods can be kept with the seller only. But in case of any risk or in case of any loss, the risk of loss is with the owner itself because the ownership has been transferred from the seller to the buyer. Therefore, it is important to learn whether the ownership has been passed from the seller to the buyer or not. And in some cases, if there is any legal course of action, or if there is any claim of damages, or if there is any claim in case of a theft, or in case of a destruction of property or destruction of goods, only owner can sue, the other person cannot sue it. This is an important point. Let us assume a case where the goods have been damaged by the action of some other person, that is third party, or the goods have been stolen, or the goods have been destroyed in some accident like fire accident. So in such a case, it is the owner who can sue for damages but not the other person. Therefore, in order to take some legal action also, passing of ownership is important from the seller to the buyer. Then we have one more thing, that is insolvency of buyer or seller. Insolvency is a position wherein a person is unable to pay his debts. His debts are overdue and he is not in a position to pay his debts. Where the buyer or the seller have become insolvent, the question whether the official receiver or official assignee can take over the property in goods depends upon the fact whether the ownership has been transferred or not. And the ownership has been transferred or not will be observed by the official receiver or official assignee, then action will be taken. Therefore, in case of insolvency of the buyer or seller, it is the ownership which will decide the fate of the goods. If the ownership has been transferred, then the situation will be different. If the ownership has not been transferred, then also the situation will be different. Therefore, the reason of insolvency of the buyer or seller is also important in case of transfer of ownership. Then one more reason which is very essential here is suit for price. The seller can sue for the price unless otherwise agreed, only if the goods have become the property of the buyer. When the property is with the buyer and when the buyer is the owner of the property or owner of the goods, then only the seller can file a suit for price. Otherwise, when the ownership is not transferred, the seller will not be in a position to file a suit for the recovery of the price or recovery of the amount. Therefore, the transfer of ownership or the significance of transfer of ownership, that is passing of property, is important on the reasons like risk of loss, only owner can sue, insolvency of the buyer or seller, and suit for the price. Now let us move on and see the time at which the property passes, or the time when the property passes. There is no specific time that is mentioned in case of transferring of the property, and the time can be fixed by the parties to the contract at their convenience. Therefore, the parties may fix any time and they can decide the time when to transfer the property from the seller to the buyer. If they feel that the transfer of property may happen instantly, then they can do that work instantly. If they feel the transfer of property may happen upon fulfillment of certain conditions or certain stipulations, then only after fulfillment of certain stipulations the transfer of property may pass. Or if they say transfer of property may happen after 3 months, then after 3 months the transfer of property may happen. But there are certain rules which are to be followed for the purpose of passing the property. And the rules regarding passing of the property are of two types. One is in case of unascertained goods, and second one is in the case of ascertained goods. So these two type of goods are on two other extremes. Let us see in the case of unascertained goods. First of all, we have to learn what is meant by unascertained goods. Unascertained goods is one, the quality, quantity, or the number or the specification of the goods is still not yet decided, and the owner of the goods or the buyer of the goods have not clearly defined the number, the quantity, or any other thing so as to make the goods as certain one. So section 18 provides that where the contract of sale is regarding unascertain goods or unascertained property, then the buyer, unless and until the goods are ascertained, the contract of unascertained goods is not complete. And let us take one more example, a contract for the sale of shares in a company which are not identified by the buyer does not transfer the property to the buyer until and unless the shares are identified. Then only the transfer of property is possible. Therefore, in case of unascertained goods, it is important to see what is to be given and in what quantity it is to be given. The individuality of the thing to be delivered must be established before the property can pass from the seller to the buyer. The individuality of the goods, if it is not established or if it is not decided, then the transfer of property from the seller to the buyer is difficult. Then we have one more kind of rule, that is in case of ascertained goods, where the contract of sale for specific or certain ascertained goods is there, the property is transferred at such times where the contract is done or where the parties to the contract intended to do so. In other words, when the goods are ascertained, when the number, specification, quality, and quantity of goods are ascertained, it depends upon the parties to the contract who will decide regarding the transfer of ownership. Where once the goods are subject matter of ascertained, then the property of goods can be transferred at the intention of the parties. When the parties want to transfer the goods, maybe instantly, maybe after some days, or etc., it may be transferred according to their convenience. Therefore, rules are of two types, where in case of ascertained goods and in case of unascertained goods. Now let us see some rules regarding passing of property. So it is clearly understood that rules regarding transfer of property shall be followed according to the intention of the parties to the contract. Therefore, the rule is that property shall pass when the parties intended it to pass. If the parties do not intend it to pass, then the property will not pass. And the rules are of five types. First one, specific goods in deliverable state. So all these rules are applicable to a type of goods, a separate group or type of goods which are totally different from each other. First is in case of specific goods in deliverable state, then specific goods not in a deliverable state, then when goods have to be measured and tested, when unascertained goods and its appropriation, and goods sent on approval or sale or return. So all these things are totally different from each other. Now let us see the first one, that is specific goods in deliverable state. In a contract of sale of some goods like specific goods which are in a deliverable state, the property in goods may pass to the buyer when the contract is made. So it can be understood that the property in the goods will pass instantly when the contract is made. Therefore, this rule will be applicable in the cases where some conditions are fulfilled. Let us learn what are those conditions. The first condition is the contract of sale must be unconditional. So there shall not be any other stipulations to the contract of sale. The contract of sale must be unconditional. It should be very clear. You give money, I will give the goods. For example, if it is a contract of exchange of 10 kgs of rice, let us assume. So you give me 400 rupees, I will give 10 kgs of rice. That is 40 rupees per kg. So in such a case, the contract of sale is called as unconditional one, where not so many stipulations or conditions are put to complete the contract of sale. Then second one, it must relate to specific goods. The goods shall be easily identified, or the specification of goods shall be very easy, or it shall be easily understood, wherein the property of goods is easily transferred from the seller to buyer without any disturbance or without any confusion. Therefore, the goods must be specific goods. This is second condition. Then third condition is the goods must be in a deliverable state. The goods must be in a deliverable state. So the seller should be in a position to hand over. The seller must be in a position to deliver the goods to the buyer on demand. When the transaction or when the contract is made, he shall be in a position to give the delivery of the goods. Therefore, when all these three conditions are fulfilled, then the rules relating the transfer of property or passing of property in case of specific goods are complete. And it is immaterial that the time of payment of the price or the delivery of the goods or the both is postponed. Sometimes it may happen that the payment of price is postponed. Some price may be given now and some price may be allowed in the form of some installments. So it is immaterial in this contract. It is not an important element and therefore it can be ignored. Let us take one example here. If Mr. X offers Mr. Y to sell his horse at rupees 5,000 on a month's credit. I repeat, Mr. X offers to Mr. Y to sell his horse for rupees 5,000 and gives a credit period of 1 month, that is 30 days. Mr. Y accepts the offer. Now we see that offer is given and acceptance is also given. And as the credit term is allowed for 1 month, that is 30 days, As soon as Mr. Y accepts Mr. X offer, the property in goods or the property has passed on to Y. That is, the horse is now owned by Y. The horse is now owned by Y. Though there is a delay in payment of 30 days, that is 1 month, but the transfer of the transfer of ownership of horse is passed on to Y. Now the risk of loss or any other legal condition that is applicable to the owner is applicable to Y only, but not X. Therefore, when all these things are satisfied, then specific goods property is transferred. And the goods are said to be in a deliverable state when they are such in a state that the buyer would be bound to take delivery of them. So in simple terms, it should be easily accepted by the buyer and there shall not be any other stipulations. And sometimes it may happen that specific goods are not in a deliverable state. Goods are identified, goods are already available, but goods are not in a deliverable state. Now we have a question, why goods are not in a deliverable state? Let us assume there is a contract between two parties for selling of rice, but the contract is made before the harvest. Now we can understand easily that rice cannot be handed over or delivered unless they are harvested and they are separated from paddy. Therefore, it takes some time. It takes some time to make the rice readily available for the purpose of deliverable condition. Therefore, in such a case, something like collection of goods or packing of goods or loading of goods or in some conditions if it is a liquid type of good, packing or filling in the containers or preparation of some boxes like carton boxes will be essential to make the goods to prepare in a deliverable condition. Therefore, in such a case, goods are specific but not in a deliverable state. Therefore, section 21 lays down that when there is a contract for sale of specific goods and the seller is bound to do something to the goods for the purpose of putting them into a deliverable condition. This something is nothing but an act or a work to be done by the seller so as the property is passed to the buyer. And the property does not pass until something is done and the buyer has a notice thereof. Therefore, the seller should inform the buyer regarding the readiness of goods. And this rule provides that property and goods will not pass unless the seller commits or seller does something in order to put the goods in a deliverable condition. So to put the goods in a deliverable condition, what the seller has to do? The seller has to put the goods in a deliverable state, that is packing or separating or sorting or filling or loading and etc. Therefore, all these works which are the final stage before the delivery of the goods will make the goods in a deliverable condition, but before that the goods are not in a deliverable state. Therefore, it is possible that two persons may agree for the purpose of buying and selling of oil, but how to hand over the oil is a question. Oil cannot be handed over just like that by putting in a big open container or vessel. It has to be packed in a proper state or proper condition. For example, package of 5 liters or package of 10 liters or tins of 20 liters or a package of 1 liter of oil shall be in a deliverable condition but not anything other else. Therefore, in order to make the goods in a deliverable condition, the goods must be properly packed and prepared by the seller so as to hand over to the buyer. And in some cases, it happens that the goods have to be measured, the goods have to be tested, and so on. Section 22 lays down certain rules regarding the contract of sale where the goods have to be measured and tested before the actual delivery. For example, if it is a oil, let us take oil example again. So before the delivery of the oil to the buyer, the oil has to be measured properly. Then only the delivery of the good, that is oil, can be given. For example, if it is a commodity like dal, or if it is a commodity like rice, it can be given only when it is properly measured and packed accordingly. Therefore, measurement of specific goods is important in order to pass the property to the buyer. Until and unless the measurement is complete, the sale transaction or the passing of property is not possible. Therefore, the seller is bound to weigh, to measure, or to test the goods before the actual delivery of the goods. In some situations, the goods are tested, so a sample check can be done. In such a case, until and unless the sample is properly checked thoroughly, the delivery of the goods is not given. Therefore, the purpose of ascertaining the quality, the purpose of ascertaining the quantity of the goods is an essential item or is an essential requisite before the goods are actually delivered. Therefore, this rule of measurement and testing the goods is applicable before the passing of property. Therefore, it is important that the goods are properly measured and tested. And one more rule is relating the goods which are unascertained and the appropriation of the goods. For example, the buyer may select the goods, but the selection of the buyer may be specific. Among the available different alternatives, the buyer may apply his knowledge and select the goods, and he can decide the goods which he has to buy. In such a case, the selection of goods by one party and the act of the other converts into a mere agreement. Therefore, the word appropriation has not been defined in the act. It means an act or the intention to identify and determine the specific goods. For example, the buyer may identify a certain goods which he would like to purchase. Therefore, when the appropriation of unascertained goods is done, the separate rule is applicable. Section 23 deals with the question of passing of property in case of unascertained goods and its appropriation. Appropriation is generally made by the seller by putting the goods into boxes or gunny bags or special packages, or in case of some liquids, special bottles, etc. Therefore, the assent of the buyer may be express or implied. Sometimes he can give some express assent, that is acceptance, and sometimes he may give some implied acceptance. Therefore, it is important to see that the unascertained goods are properly appropriated and the property is transferred to the buyer. In the following two cases, the seller is deemed to have reserved the right of disposal of himself. Sometimes it may happen. Sometimes it may happen where the goods are shipped or delivered to a railway administration for carriage, and the bill of lading or railway receipt, they are deliverable to the order of the seller or his agent. So, in simple words, it means the goods are shipped or delivered to a railway administration for transportation. Then, second one, where the seller of goods draws on the buyer the price of the goods and sends the bill of exchange and bill of lading or railway receipt to the buyer together. Therefore, the property in the goods does not pass to the buyer unless the buyer accepts the bill of exchange. Here, the essential requirement is the buyer shall accept the bill of exchange. And one more ruling position here is the condition is goods sent on approval or on sale or return. This is also one more type of transaction in which the goods are transacted. sometimes the seller gives an option to the buyer to check to satisfy himself and accept the goods. Then he will treat it as a sell transaction, or else he can return the goods which he does not like. So let us assume a condition wherein the goods are sold under a contract of sale or return on approval. The sale is a conditional sale. Here there is one stipulation or condition wherein the condition says that either the goods may be accepted or the goods may be returned. So when the goods are accepted, it is treated as a sale transaction, and when the goods are returned, it is treated as a return condition. Therefore, the property in such a case passes to the buyer only in some situations. And what are those situations? Let us see one by one. When the buyer signifies his approval or acceptance to the seller. On receipt of the goods, after the buyer receives the goods, he may tell his assent or he may express his assent to the seller, saying that I have accepted the goods, or I have taken the goods, or the goods are accepted by me. So, like this, he should tell something in return to the seller in order to satisfy the seller that he has either accepted the goods or rejected the goods. And if he has accepted the goods, the property in goods passes on to the buyer. And there can be one more condition where the buyer does any other act adopting a transaction. Example, selling the goods to the third party or pledging the goods with a third party. So it indirectly means that the buyer has accepted the goods and the goods are in the possession or kept in the possession of a third party under some pledge, or the buyer has again sold the goods to some other person, that is resale. Then only, or in this condition only, it can be assumed that the transfer of property has actually happened from the seller to the buyer. And in some cases where the buyer does not signify his approval or acceptance but retains the goods without giving notice of rejection. So, in simple terms, if rejection notice is not received from the buyer, the seller will assume that the goods have been accepted by the buyer and the transfer of property is deemed to be transferred to the buyer. And the seller will not demand for the return of goods. There will be no sales return in this case. Therefore, if the buyer does not signify his approval or acceptance and however retains the goods without giving any notice of rejection, he will not say that I have rejected the goods or I am rejecting the goods in any mode of communication. Then what happens is it is assumed that the buyer has accepted the goods and the property in the goods has been transferred to the buyer. And sometimes, if a time has been fixed for the return of goods and on the expiration of such time, it is assumed that the ownership has been transferred. Let us assume one condition wherein the seller has dispatched the goods with a time of 30 days. He has communicated to the buyer that if you want to reject the goods, you can reject the goods within a period of 30 days. If the buyer receives the goods and does not send the goods in return within a period of 30 days and he keeps the goods with him only continuously, then it will be assumed by the seller that the buyer has accepted the goods and there is no sales return. Since the time given has expired, that is, the time given of 30 days has expired and the ownership has been transferred to the buyer. And in some cases, no such time is fixed for return of the goods. Then in this case, what to do? In this case, when no time has been fixed, the reasonable time concept is used here. Reasonable time concept is very large, and what is the reasonable time is a question. Deciding upon the reasonable time depends upon the facts and circumstances of each case. For example, the reasonable time for perishable goods will be very short. For example, we can take the milk or milk products, vegetables, or any other things which are perishable in nature. The reasonable time will be very short, maybe some hours or 1 day. But in case of some durable goods, the reasonable time can be given in days also, maybe 10 days, maybe 15 days, or 1 month, like that. So, in such a case, when reasonable time is not fixed in the contract, the concept of reasonable time is used appropriately depending upon each particular case. Therefore, the goods sent on approval or the goods sent on sale or return have to be properly dealt according to the act, and the transfer of property shall be passed according to the existing rules. Let us take one example here. If a person buys a horse on a condition that sale or return within 8 days, sale or return within 8 days, and the horse died within 8 days. Let us assume the horse died on 6th day without his fault. The horse died naturally without the fault of the buyer. Now the question is, who is at loss? Who is at loss? Whether the seller is suffering the loss due to the death of the horse, whether the buyer is suffering the loss due to the death of horse. The rule here is, since the horse was sold with a condition of sale or return within 8 days, since the time of 8 days has not been complete, then in this case the risk of loss will be on the seller only. Why? Because the ownership of the horse is not transferred to the buyer till now. And this matter was taken to the court. This happened between Elphick versus Burns, and it was held by the court that the seller could not recover the price of the horse as the property in horse has not yet passed to the buyer. So it was ruled by the court that the seller has to face the loss because the property is not transferred to the buyer. Therefore, when goods are sent on approval or sale or return, in this case, what happens is the goods are not transferred, or the property in goods is not transferred until the expiry of the actual term. Therefore, the risk in this case, that due to the death of horse was with the seller only, that is the seller of the horse. Therefore, passing of risk is nothing but it is the passing of ownership together with risk. Now there are some more contracts which are called as CIF contracts, FOB contracts, and ex-ship contracts. CIF contracts stands for cost, insurance, and freight. FOB contracts stand for free on board contracts. Then we have ex-ship contracts, that is the contracts which undertakes to give delivery to the buyer from a ship which has arrived at the port and has reached the place therein, which is the usual delivery of the goods of the kind in question. Therefore, what are the different rules or provisions relating to these contracts we have to see. There are some duties of the buyer, there are some duties of the seller. So the duties of buyer and duties of seller are clearly mentioned. Let us take the example of CIF contracts. In a CIF contracts, let us see the duties of the seller. The duties of seller are large. He is supposed to make out an invoice of the goods sold. What are the different goods that he has actually sold, and he has to prepare an invoice in case of a CIF contract. And he is supposed to ship the goods at the port of shipment. After the acceptance of purchase, after the communication of acceptance from the buyer, he has to ship the goods at the port of shipment. It is his duty to ship the goods at the port of shipment and to procure on shipment a contract of a freightment under which the goods will be delivered at the destination contemplated by the contract. So he has to make sure, or he has to make an understanding wherein the goods will be delivered at the destination. And he has to arrange for an insurance upon the terms current in the trade which will be available for the benefit of the buyer. Since there is a risk of loss in the transit, the seller is supposed to buy or arrange an insurance policy so as to safeguard the goods in transit. And the policy must cover the goods for the whole transit. The policy must cover the goods for the whole transit, that is one end to the other end. If something happens in the transit, then the insurance will make good the loss that has happened during the transit. Let us assume there is a fire accident in the transit. Then the risk of loss will be recovered from the insurance company because of the insurance that he has made. Therefore, the seller is supposed to arrange an insurance also on the goods in transit. Then he is supposed to forward and tender to the buyer within a reasonable time all the shipping documents. This is most important. He has to forward all the shipping documents to the buyer within a reasonable time. And if he does not follow any of these conditions, the breach of any duty entitles the buyer to repudiate the contract. If he does not follow any of his duties, that is the seller, the buyer may treat the contract as a repudiated one. Therefore, it is important that the seller shall follow all his duties. Then there are some duties of the buyer also. He is also supposed to comply with some duties. The buyer must pay the price on the presentation of the agreed documents. This is most important one. He is bound to pay the price even though the ship has not arrived. Sometimes it may happen that the documents reach the buyer before the goods reach. If the transit time is so long, the documents reach or the documents have reached the buyer, then the buyer must pay the price according to the agreed terms and conditions. Then, in case there is a contract to pay after a certain time, the buyer must accept the bill of exchange or the draft. There may be an agreement between the buyer and seller wherein, according to the contract terms, if the bill is supposed to be paid at a later date, at a future date, then he must accept the bill of exchange. The bill of exchange must be accepted and he has to sign the bill of exchange. Where the payment is agreed through a banker's credit, the buyer must furnish a letter of credit. So, in some cases, this happens. He has to arrange a letter of credit in the favor of seller, and letter of credit is given by a bank, and the seller will encash this letter of credit according to his convenience. And where the duties are payable upon the goods, the charges for export duties fall upon the seller, but in the absence of contract, of the contrary, the charges for import duties have to be paid by the buyer. This happens in some conditions. The buyer is supposed to pay some charges also. Then the contract will be complete with the fulfillment of duties of the buyer and seller. And sometimes it happens that the goods are sold by non-owners. So this concept is new and it is presumed that the seller is full owner of the goods, and on transfer the buyer also becomes an absolute owner of the goods. Now let us see some conditions wherein the goods are sold by non-owners. These are all permitted by the law, by the act. So these are sale by a mercantile agent. When a mercantile agent sells the goods, he is also treated as the owner of the goods. He is permitted to sell the goods. Then sale under the implied authority of the owner or title by estoppel. This is also possible with the authority of the owner. Then sale by one of the joint owners. This is also possible when one of the joint owners will sell the goods. Then sale by a person in possession of goods under a voidable contract. This is also possible. Under a voidable contract, the goods can be sold by a person in possession of a contract. And this is also an exception to this. Then sometimes it may happen that it is a sale by an unpaid seller. So the concept of unpaid seller is already discussed by us. Unpaid seller is one who is supposed to receive any portion of the payment, however small it is. Maybe it is 1 rupee also. So in case of sale by an unpaid seller also, it is an exception to the transfer of ownership and contract. Therefore, these exceptions are permitted by the law. Thank you.